We don't have to fight, we don't have to kill. Everybody in the whole wide world really just needs to chill. No, we don't have to fuss, no, we don't have to fight.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Just Chill with Oliver George. This is episode number 94, and my guest this time around is a skilled actor, comedian, and musician who is here in town for the Crackup Comedy Festival. But before we get into that, I want to remind you, if you're watching on YouTube right now and you would prefer audio only, you can get that at Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and other places like that. If you're hearing my voice on one of those platforms, though, and you did not realize that there was a visual side to this thing, I encourage you to please come check it out here on YouTube. If you do come over to the YouTube side, I would really appreciate it if you would consider hitting the subscribe button. Obviously, you don't have to, but it does help me to keep growing this channel, and I love connecting with new people. So if you're just stopping in for the first time or you've been a supporter since day one, thank you very much. It does really mean the world to me. If you'd like to reach out to me, maybe with a cool guest idea or some general feedback about the podcast, you can hit me up on social media or send me an email at justchillpodcasting@gmail.com. While you're doing that, let me know if you have interest in one of these holofoil stickers with the show's logo, and I will send you one free of charge.
Whoa.
Now, as I mentioned off the top, my guest is a very talented individual who is here in Ottawa for the Crackup Comedy Festival, which is happening tonight. And he is an honorary guest and presenter at that event, where he will be handing out the coveted Candy Awards, which is given to deserving Canadian comedic talent and is, of course, named after his legendary father, the universally beloved actor John Candy. I'm so happy to welcome to the studio Mr. Chris Candy.
Hey,
thank you so much for coming, man. This is truly a treat.
So you memorized all of that at the top.
On the way to pick you up, I was just going, oh man, every time someone says, oh, good intro, all I can hear is my little like tense gasps for air. I'm always a little worked up at the beginning. Thank you. Thanks so much.
That was great. Thanks for having me. It's lovely to be down here, hanging out with your dad and drinking a lovely AHA sparkling water beverage.
They're pretty good, right?
They're AHA.
I honestly think they edge out Bubblies in my opinion because they're dual flavor.
Yeah, it's got two complex flavors going on, pineapple and passion
amalgamation.
fruit. Yeah, it's very good. No, thanks for having me. Yeah, it's nice to be back. Kind of briefly mentioned it on our car ride over, but I haven't been back to Canada for like 3 years since before the pandemic.
Yep.
So it's really good to be back. And I'm just loving my time here. So
no, we always want to have one of our sons back to the Great White North, right? Like you got to make the trip once in a while.
It's the most noticeable change of tone once you go from the States back to Canada, and I always welcome it. It's so lovely, and there's just so many differences that happen when you cross over, and so it felt good. And that was also the thing too. I think I didn't really realize how much, that was such a heavy time for everybody, no matter what. And I think it's just like starting to travel again and all of that. I mean, I've been traveling, but it's to come back here really is nice. Because one thing I noticed is if you did travel during the pandemic, and you would go back to a place that you remembered pretty well, it's still, that place was trying to get through the pandemic too. Yeah. No place was free of it. If you wanted to go to Italy, they were trying to get through it too. You wouldn't escape that ever.
Yeah. And so it didn't really feel like you were returning to that place in its true form.
Yeah. And so this feels like its true form. Ottawa feels really great. And so it was nice to get up and walk around and chill.
Yeah, we're always happy to have you here. And I know the Crackup Comedy Festival is something you've been a part of for several years, but I did want to ask, when was the first time that they implemented the Candy Awards?
So I don't exactly know the correct number, but I think the creator, John Helmke, he put it together years prior to him reaching out to my family. And then he hit us up maybe 6-7 years ago.
Okay.
And he said he wanted to do a honorary inductee for my father. He wanted to kind of award my father. And it was a really nice event that they did downtown. And Margaret Trudeau was there.
Oh, wow.
It was they were giving her an award too. And then the year after that, I think based off of Norm Macdonald's he wanted to call, I think it was
Canadian Screen Awards.
The Canadian Screen Awards. He wanted to call it the Candy Award, and he was kind of joking about the idea throughout the whole
the candies.
Yeah. And I think John just heard and he's like, well, I'll do it for my comedy festival. And so John then took the name and added it towards Crackup. And so then more or less the last well, since then, the festival's been going on, and we've been giving 2 Candy Awards to.
Oh, it's 2 every year. Okay,
yeah,
I wasn't
to
sure if that
male,
was just
female comedian,
Okay.
and it's more or less to highlight. Initially, it was comedians from kind of the past, and so we did Colin Mockery, and we did
amazing.
Andrea Martin,
Okay.
and then. From there, he had a really great idea about presenting it to current comedians who are going on. So like this year we have like Big
This
Daddy.
year's a mix though, right?
It is.
You've got Robin Duke, who's
Robin Duke
SCTV.
is a senior, and then you've
SNL.
got exactly, and then you have Big Daddy Tazz, who's more of a current comedian, and that's I kind of think the progress it's going to be moving in forward. We kind of embody generosity and the Canadian spirit within comedy, and I think that's really where the award's going to nowadays. And so John usually sends us a couple people he thinks are really great. He's got his kind of finger on the pulse of comedy in Ottawa. And then we chime in who we might think would be great, or if we can help him get in touch with somebody, then that's usually how it works. And
So you guys get to weigh in. That's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, definitely. And so that's really how it works. And then he picks a charity to donate to, and it's always kind of changing. But its focus has always been on mental health, mental health support, and he's really been focused on that for years now. John works, I don't know exactly where, but it's somewhere within that avenue, and I think it's within. God, I guess it would be politics, but I think anyways, I'm not exactly sure where it is.
Cool. And normally your sister comes with you.
Yeah.
This year she's appearing virtually, I believe.
Jen, no, it's just me. I'm going to be, Jen will be, she's back in Los Angeles, and she's just got too much work going on down there.
I thought she told me she was doing it via satellite or that kind of thing. Maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe they're piping her in and I have no idea.
I haven't told you yet. I wanted to give a shout out to your sister though for helping me get in touch with you, because I had a great chat with her last May, and I'm really happy to be able to do this. So thank you, Jen.
Yeah. Hey, Jen. What's
And
up?
also shout out to comedians that are going to be featured or have been featured during the festival, but they will be there tonight as well, who have been on this show. So Kyle Brownrigg, David Brennan, and Fiona O'Brien. Good job on all of you guys for making it there. And I can't wait to see you.
It's great. Yeah, it's and the festival itself has gotten me to get up to Ottawa and see Ottawa in ways that I haven't. It's like my experience with Canada is pretty Toronto centric.
Newmarket, right?
The town where we had property was up in Queensville, which is like kind of part of East Gwillimbury above Newmarket. For those who don't know where that is
that the farm I've seen, sort of the open land that you see in that interview with your father?
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. Okay. So my mom and dad bought a farmhouse back in, I guess that would be the 70s. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Late 70s, early 80s. And then my father kind of kept expanding it and, buying plots of land around it. And so that was the farm, and we still have a little bit of land left up there. Not too much, but that's all getting developed. It's unfortunate that whole kind of land is getting developed, but Canada's just got such a boom for development going on. So
we've got a lot of land.
There's a lot of land to develop, but I have spent a lot of time up this way and in that part of the world. So going to Ottawa, I've done stuff in Montreal, but then to be honest with you, I live on the West Coast, but I've spent the least amount of time on like West Coast Canada.
Oh,
Vancouver, I haven't like really explored it too much.
Yeah, I have not either.
I'd love to, but love to get to the East Coast more. And this festival even does stuff up in Iqaluit.
Yeah, the Arctic Comedy Festival, I believe.
And I'm trying to do that this fall. He was talking about me going up there and doing some improv classes up there. And,
cool.
And I was like, oh, fuck yes.
I'm sure they'd be happy to have you.
Yeah, I'd love to do that.
I know if it's the same festival, I know a couple of comedians that have done that as well.
Yeah, exactly.
I believe Simone Holder was there last year, and Janelle Niles, a couple other people that we've had on the show. So I mean, they'd be lucky to have you.
Well, for me, it's just like getting to see parts of the world that you wouldn't normally get a chance to go to. So I would be very lucky to go up there.
What an experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
We had a singer on this show who spent a lot of time in the Arctic, and she was talking about how, it would be dark for 2 weeks and then it would be bright for 2 weeks and that kind of stuff. I think that's because she was even further north. She was all the way up at like Alert in like a military base, the northernmost sort of area. But
I don't think it was just 2 weeks.
Well, yeah.
I mean, it goes months. Right?
Oh, does it really?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
could have sworn she said it was a couple of weeks.
No, when you get to the high latitudes, it's like summer for a long time, then it's dark for a long time.
Oh, wow. Yeah, well, she was talking about how it would be hard to sleep because you'd wake up at 3 a.m. and it'd be bright outside like it was the afternoon.
There was a stand-up who did the Crackup 3 or 4 years ago, maybe it was 3 years, right before the pandemic. And he was talking about how there are areas where you get off the train, but you have to give the conductor the coordinates, like the longitude and the latitude.
Oh, wow.
That's where it stops. That's where the train stops. And I'm going, that's pretty rural, man.
Yeah, that's a whole different world.
Yeah.
Wow. So coming back to Canada, I heard you touch on another podcast about this, your accent coming back. And you brought up something that is actually very true to me as well, which is that I would find myself adapting to sort of the people that I'm around, and my linguistic sensibilities will kind of just shift. And I was talking to you about Vic Ruggiero coming on the show.
Right.
And for like a week after that, I was speaking like I was from New York. She's got a real thick one on him.
Yeah,
that sounded suggestive. Thick accent.
It does happen. Even as I'm here listening to my voice, I'm going like, who is that? But I get comfortable within the kind of dialect around. I remember even I was in Hawaii with Mike Park a couple of weeks ago, and next thing I know, I'm just saying like cuz and brother, all this stuff. But I think it's because I'm relaxed. Probably that's normally what it means, and kind of putting my guard down a little bit. But with Canada specifically, I think it's also just like a familiarity, and I think your accent is a part of who you are, and it's just easier to. For me, it's just a comforting feeling. And it's not forced too. My Canadian accent is
very organic.
Yeah, it's very organic. And but I do know what you're talking about with like New York accents or
any accent,
any accent in general. Yeah, exactly. You kind of start posturing or delivering things in that manner. Well,
I spoke to Vic about how we thought that's just a survival thing. It's probably instinctual evolutionary thing. You want to fit in with the tribe that you're currently associating with,
Exactly. Yeah. My friends jokingly call me Maui Jim whenever I come back from Hawaii because I'm like, it's all good, cuz. Don't worry, bro.
Do they say cuz and bra?
Well,
I've never been there.
In Hawaii, it's a lot of like cuz, like cousin and brada and bra and all that. And I'm not Hawaiian, and it's very specific to the people who live over that way. But
you've been there many times. I'd seen on your Instagram, it looked like more than one occasion.
Yeah, I went when I was younger, but for Californians, it's not that far. It's like
I suppose that's true.
It's only like a 6-hour flight to get there, and then it's about 4 hours, 40 minutes to get back. And I have a good friend. It initially started with we were talking earlier about Mike Park. My friend Mike had, and to those who don't know, Mike's this really famous ska punk musician. He owns a record label called Asian Man Records. And he's an old friend of mine, and I can go into all that, but. He invited me to play in his band, the Bruce Lee Band, and he lets me play trumpet every once in a while with them. And so for his 50th birthday, I played with the Bruce Lee Band, and we did 2 shows in Hawaii. And that kind of started it because I was over in this town called Kailua, which is on the, I don't think it's on the east side of the island. That's what it is. Yeah. And anyways, beautiful, cute little town. And I love to run. I'm a runner. And so I was just having these like epic runs over in Kailua. And I just was like, I have got to figure out a way to get back here. Like at
retirement
least
plan, maybe?
Well, I would at least visit. I think at least once a year, get back there for like a weekend or something. Cause I got a lot of Hawaiian credit card miles.
Oh, there you go.
So the trips are free and I can get back over there and go on some beautiful runs and hang out with some friends. And he has a friend there, this guy named John Shoish. And John used to play drums in this ska band from Hawaii called the Tantra Monsters.
Okay.
So the Tantra Monsters and Mike's old band Skanka Pickle played together a bunch. And so there's like 2 types of trips I can do when I go out that way. I can go back with my family or my girlfriend and stay at like a hotel, or I can do like the weird Mike Park, John Shoish trip where I'm just kind of like hanging out, like going on runs and like walking around in Kailua. Anyways, I picked up the accent there. That's where we bring it back to.
Yeah, I mean, I think it happens to a lot of people, though. It's
Maui Jim, just like
I don't think it makes you a poser or something.
I feel like a poser.
Well, when someone calls you on it, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Mike called me on it. I think I was talking to like a Lyft driver, and he was like, oh man, like I've been in crazy traffic to pick you guys up. And I was like, oh, don't worry about it, cuz. And then Mike goes, why are you talking like you're Hawaiian? I was like, I don't know.
It just happened. Oh, that's funny. When you kept saying bruh, I can't help but think of my daughter's 12, and her and all her friends say bro.
Oh, dude.
Constantly. She calls me bro. I'm like, that doesn't even make sense.
But is it bro or is it bruh?
No, it's bro, actually.
Really?
Surprisingly. She'll go bro.
So in California right now, it's bruh.
Bruh. Like they're saying bra, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I've experienced that through Mike Park's daughter, Maggie, and she's in like her teenage years now, and she's just like, bruh. We went camping, and we went camping, the four of us, like, and she was just like, not down with camping. Yeah. Like wanted to go into town and get
that was me as a kid, actually.
Yeah. Like she wanted to do what any 14-year-old wanted to do, like go and like find like the coffee bar, Yeah. And so when we were trying to like go camping and do camping stuff, she's like, bruh. Anyways.
I've only recently started to enjoy camping, and that's because we're, I guess, glamping. We rent a cottage somewhere.
Right.
I can't do the tent thing. I'd wake up with a sore back every day, and
there's
always that one mosquito in the tent driving me insane. I don't know, call me a prima donna, but...
Well, that was actually my my like entryway into like camping in Canada. Is that my cousins in Toronto? They invited me for, I think we did it 2 or 3 years in a row, to go on a canoe trip along the French River above. That's I guess more in the Toronto area, and it's kind of below Thunder Bay, I think, isn't it? Or maybe it's I'm looking at your dad.
I look to my dad constantly for factoids, so you're not
It's
out
in
of
Canada,
place.
right?
So I've heard of I've heard of the French River, but I couldn't place it.
Okay.
Nope. You don't win that Trivial Pursuit round.
Don't win that one. No.
Well,
but that's pretty good for knowing a little bit about everything.
That's
so
good.
That wasn't off key at all.
It's a consequence of age.
right on. But I did a great canoe trip with them, and I had to do like the whole portage, like overnight camping and everything. And I just came back on like, yeah, you're fucking Canadian.
Yeah. Did you feel like I get it now? Kind of, I enjoy this, or more just a badge of honor?
No, I loved it. I think I always loved challenges and stuff, and there was a lot of like rowing going on that trip. And
and you mentioned running was something I had written down here because you do seem like a big runner.
Yeah.
You just did the LA Marathon a few days ago, right?
Last weekend I did LA Marathon. That was my 5th LA Marathon.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, I did want to ask you how many marathons you've run to date, and maybe not a marathon, but in general, which run have you done that was the most grueling or arduous?
Oh, cool. Sure.
For the people who really want a challenge, right? They can.
Yeah, I guess I've always loved like a challenge, and I think that running has been like a really cool teacher for me, and it has really like you get something out of all the runs you go on, and I always feel like if you're in like a bad mood or if you're trying to work through something, if you go on like a 30-minute run, your perspective will change, and you'll have kind of this new view on things. And so with marathons, I've run, I think. Technically, I've run 5 LA marathons, and then I did a piecemeal marathon during the pandemic, so 6 altogether.
Okay.
By piecemeal, I mean I have like a running crew out of in the States. It's worldwide. We're called it's Never Not Run, NNR. And Never Not Run was this like slogan I said when I was in high school. NNR, Never Not Run. And the phrase would find itself into songs that I would write, or it was my original Instagram handle. My very first Instagram handle was NNR. People thought I was probably like some kind of weird guns right activist or something. But when I changed it for professional reasons to my name, like I should have a long time ago, I was like, what am I going to do with this handle? And then I was like, I'm going to start a running group, basically. And through that, we hold all these digital races throughout the year. And by that, I mean, like, if you want to be in the race, like, you just let me know, and we start a group chat, and there's all kinds of people from all over the world who are running the race that same day, basically.
Cool.
And one of the ones we did during the pandemic was a marathon where I basically said, I'm going to get all the elements together of a race day photos, a race t-shirt, times, and all of this stuff. And I'll manage all that. We'll get a group chat together through Instagram. And then you run a marathon in one day, and you have 24 hours to complete it. And so, if you want to do 10 miles and then take a 5-hour break and do another 10. And then, you could break it up however you want. And so that was my other marathon I had done.
Sorry, I have never run a marathon. So it is 20 miles then?
It's 26.2 miles. I don't know.
How much is that in kilometers?
Kilometers is like 40, 50,
Canadian conversion.
62K maybe, I think. Or
Wow.
it's up there, yeah.
Holy shit.
And but through Never Not Run, then I started just like, I got kind of, running's addictive a little bit. Like
I've heard this.
the endorphin high and the feeling of completion is very intoxicating. And I guess it's a good thing, but
What's a testament of your willpower to not give up on such a long journey?
And they're fun, they're just really fun at the end of the day. And I did, the hardest one I ever did was this thing called the 4x4x48. And it was 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours. And I did
Whoa.
that 3 years ago or 2 years ago. And that one was created by this like motivational, well, he's not a motivational speaker, but he's this like book author, Navy SEAL guy named David Goggins.
Oh, I know that. Well, I don't know him, but
Yeah.
I've seen him online. Yeah.
Yeah, and his book was just really neat, and I got a lot out of it. And
He's the guy who kind of yells at you a bit, like, it's 5 a.m., get up.
yeah,
I've seen his videos. Yeah.
He is intense for sure. I've definitely like played him for friends on like on podcasts, and they've had like panic attacks listening to him.
Well, he's like a no excuses guy. You are your biggest hurdle.
Yeah, exactly. He's the most no self-help book self-help guy you can find. Like, and really all he's saying is anything you want to do in life is hard. At the end of the day, that's the biggest takeaway I have from it. Like anything you want to do, be it physical or life or goal oriented, it's not.
Well, and he lost tons of weight, as I know it. He
Yep.
used to be a lot larger, and he was in the military or something.
He's just this person who came from so much oppression, and he grew up, I think, in a town where the KKK was created. He was just, he's a black man. He was getting all kinds of hate. He was overweight. I think he ended up losing over 100+ pounds.
Oh, he's shredded now.
Yeah, and then he also was. He couldn't read. He didn't know how to read, and so he taught himself how to do all of this stuff. And so his whole takeaway for people is like, you have the tools to get through whatever it is you need to get through. And a lot of people get confused by him because they think they actually need to go out and do the crazy thing he does, and you don't have to. It's all relative, really.
It's a mindset.
It's all the mindset, yeah. And so. So it's also not about pushing other people. It's really just for whatever you're looking to get out of a thing. And that could be in work, that could be in relationship, that could be whatever. So anyways, I got a lot out of him, but he created this really stupid race called the 4x4x48. And
The rubber legs race.
yeah, seriously. I mean, it's created by a man who has no knees. And and I did that, and that was insane. That was stupid.
Yeah, that sounds intense.
But that's the thing with running. There's always a challenge that is just crazy enough for you to be like, I could do that too. And then you're just down the rabbit hole, like so far gone.
Yeah.
And the people in your life are like, what is he doing? There's one happening right now that I crewed on, and I didn't race in it. I did a little bit of running, but not much. And it's called the Speed Project. And the Speed Project is this race that goes, it's a relay race. It starts at the Santa Monica Pier and it ends in Las Vegas.
Oh.
And so that is like a 350 mile race. And you can go however you want to get to this endpoint. There's no route. You can create your own route.
Weird.
And I drove an RV for this team to do that. And that was seeing true athletes like perform at a high level. And I was like blown away by that. I was like, oh my God, these guys are monsters. Just so
cool that you kind of just got to figure it out on your own too.
Yeah, like you're in the middle of like the Mojave Desert, and you're in the middle of nowhere, and you're kind of like making sure your runners don't get like attacked by rabid dogs.
Yeah,
it was the most brutal thing I had participated in, but I didn't run that. So
what would be like the average completion time on something like that?
Well, I think the fastest team to do it did it in like 39 hours, and I think
I was gonna say it must be more than a day.
Yeah, our team did it. I remember you started at like 4 a.m. on Saturday morning, and then we finished on Sunday morning at like 1 a.m. So it was like, but it was pretty, that one was visually beautiful, but very brutal in the sense of, the commitment for it. But yeah, so I've with all of that stuff, with running and all of that stuff, I just like it. I enjoy the world. It's like a fun thing that I can kind of busy my mind with, and I get a lot out of it. But yeah,
I'm only now starting to open up my mind to running because that crazy dog you saw in the backyard, she's very, very high energy. And a lot of the time it's just makes more sense to just run with her and tire her out. And I'm starting to see why people like it, because as a kid, or a teenager, I should say, I was a smoker, pot smoker. My lungs were probably not in great shape.
Yeah.
And in gym class, I just remember running the beep test. I don't know did you ever have the beep test where you have to run back and forth and the beeps keep getting closer together?
Yes.
I just remember my lungs being on fire, and I never really wanted to do that for fun, but I'm finally coming around.
I think I always ask people, like, if you like running, then you'll get a lot out of it. If you hate running, then do something else. Yeah,
fair. But people can change over time.
That's true. I mean? That's very true.
I've got better lungs now than I did back then, I'm sure.
Then you'll love it.
Yeah, well, it sounds like there's a big community of people that are into it. So
it's never been, I feel like, more popular than it is right now. There's a lot of people who are getting into it, and I think the pandemic did that for a lot of people, actually. Like, people were skateboarding more, surfing more, running, just getting out more and doing these things.
I wanted to ask you about skateboarding, actually. I didn't even write in my notes, but I noticed a lot of photos on your Instagram of you at a place called Rip City, I think it was.
Yeah.
And you dubbed it as like family.
Sure.
And I saw you with a longboard too, so I wanted to know, do you skate, and sort of just what the significance of that place was to you? Or is?
Well, Rip City is this, it's the oldest continuously running skate shop in America.
Wow.
It started in 1978 by these two cousins, Jim McDowell and Bill Poncher. Jim is now retired. He lives in Colorado, and Bill still lives there. And it was my first job. I worked there when I was in the 8th grade, and
that's a cool job to have in the 8th grade.
Yeah, man. I mean, it was the coolest job to get in town. I remember them just kind of going to me.
Isn't 8th grade kind of young to be working too? It's like,
yeah, well, it's a little under the.
Oh, okay, it was one of those.
But
here's some new trucks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, take a T-shirt home.
Yeah.
And I was never a great skater, but I loved the culture, and I
That's kind
did
of like
it.
Me.
Yeah, and I still roll around to this day. I like to go surfing every once in a while, but now I help out there a little bit more in my free time. Since the cousin retired, and just kind of help piecemeal a crew together to work over there, because the other man is older. He's in his later 70s, and it is family, because I think for me, when I was a kid, it was like, my father passed away when I was in the 3rd grade, and so this was then this place where I could go hang out with these cool dudes, and kind of like, the place is jokingly called a bar without alcohol, because people just go into this place and just, talk like the way we're talking.
Just hang, yeah.
Exactly. And
cool.
So I got a lot of experience of the like LA, SoCal, Venice beach culture, and skateboarding also started in this area. Santa Monica is called Dogtown. Then you have Venice. And skateboarding is born out of this zone. And so I was privy to all the famous skaters, from like Tony Alva, Jay Adams came in a few times. The whole Dogtown crew was kind of around, like in and out Rip City.
Stacey Peralta, is he another one?
Yeah.
I watched that movie with Heath Ledger back in the day.
Yeah, yes. And well, Skip Engblom, who Heath portrayed as a friend of mine.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, and I just had access to all of these like really important people in that world. And so skateboarding is just is that for me. So nowadays I still help out with Rip City's T-shirts and their social media, and I help out a little more, because I as I've been an actor and all of these other things too, I've always had a job in retail, and I worked for Stussy, and I worked for clothing brands, and
I always thought it was Stussy.
Yeah, Stussy.
Okay.
Everyone thinks that though.
It's not just me. Okay.
No. It's all, everyone does, and then I always just say, well, it's a guy's last name, and the guy who created his name was Sean Stussy.
Oh, well, that makes perfect sense then. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I worked there, and so I took all the knowledge from there and applied it to Rip City. But yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I'm glad I asked about that.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for asking.
Well, I have a lot of things I still want to go over with you. I guess we could get into Mike Park and that connection because I didn't know until I started researching you that you were a musician. So there's a lot to talk about there. But as you mentioned, Mike Park is probably one of your best friends. I've seen you write a couple of posts.
Yeah, I met Mike when, and I think it's the same thing with the Rip City guys. I met him around the 8th grade, and
that you guys go that far back. Wow.
So yeah, Mike had Asian Man Records, and I was really into ska and punk rock music at that time. Still am. And Mike owned the label, and I would buy CDs, and to find out about other bands, I'd read the thank you sections of those CDs, and then I'd say, oh, okay, well, like if what Real Big Fish is saying thank you to, Skanka Pickle, I got to find out who Skanka Pickle is. And then they're saying thank you to Suicide Machines. I got to see who Suicide Machines are. And who are these slackers? It's like, how's this all work? And so hold on, I got to sneeze. Do I? No, I don't.
I know that feeling, the almost sneeze.
Oh God, it's the worst. It's the worst. Mike was, he had the phone number for Asian Man Records on the back of one of the CDs. And so I called it, and I thought that I was going to get a front desk or someone who was taking the calls. I thought this
or something.
Asian Man Records, it was going to be this huge record company. And the guy picked up the phone. Well, hey, what's going on? And I was in a ska band in the 8th grade, and we were playing a talent show, and they had this song called Fakin' Jamaican. And I couldn't figure out this one lyric, and I wanted to figure out if someone at Asian Man Records knew it. And so I was talking to this person, and then I started talking about all the bands. Hey, what's up with the Bruce Lee band? What's up with Alkaline Trio? What's up with, And then I go, well, what's up with Mike Park? And he was going, oh, I'm doing pretty good. And I lost my mind. I was like, what? And I was so overwhelmed because this is like my hero. And
because he's, significantly older.
Yeah, he's 51.
I was thinking, this guy can't have a record company in the 8th grade.
No, yeah. And so Mike then, and I just kind of became buddies through AOL, email back and forth. And he was really into Star Wars toy collection. And I traded him a bunch of Star Wars toys for Asian Man Records posters, and he got the better end of the deal.
Does he still have them, I'm guessing?
He got rid of all of them.
Oh, no.
Yeah. He sold them to somebody who was really,
that hurts the nerd in me, but I understand.
Yeah. This stuff is
hard times.
Yeah. And so then Mike, over the years, I got to graduate high school, and he invited me to go work for his nonprofit, the Plea for Peace Foundation, on the Vans Warped Tour. And so that was my second job, more or less, where I was on the Vans Warped Tour for a whole summer. And there is kind of a big pot for me because I meet a lot of people there. Jeff Rosenstock is one of them, who's a pretty successful musician now, and Mike Park put out his records. But I go to meet a lot of people on this tour, and through Mike, he continued to be a good friend after that. And then I worked with him on other tours where I'd be his guitar tech or roadie or whatever. And there was a crew. It was his now wife and our friend Hiro Tanaka and Mike. And now we hang out whenever we can, or, the Hawaii thing's kind of a thing at the moment. We do a thing called Punk Rock Weddings where he officiates the wedding and I DJ the wedding, and our friend Hiro takes all the photos. And so it's a cool little
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's again, these are all things that are for fun. But I'm fortunate, man. I know a lot of really nice people, and I'm always kind of amazed at how cool some of these people are. And Mike's one of them. I just think he's got one of the biggest hearts, and he's very important to the DIY music scene.
Oh yeah, he's a mastermind.
Yeah.
I mean, I told you in the car that I have a bit of a connection to him. I think the first time I heard Skankin' Pickle was when I met my ex-wife. She loaded a bunch up on my old iPod, which I probably still have somewhere.
Oh, cool.
A bunch of their albums. So I've always liked their music, but then more recently, I've interviewed a few people from Degrassi on this show.
Okay.
One of which was Stacey Mistitian, and she was just... she had been doing exercise stuff for a long time, but she was starting to put YouTube videos up with workout videos.
Yeah.
And there was one for World Fitness Day where I got in that video, and so was Mike. So we're both in that video showing how to do certain exercise moves. So that That was a weird small world kind of thing.
Totally. He told me about that. I remember. Yeah, Stacy did.
He was doing like turn lunges or something like that, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
I was doing butt kickers and something else. Yeah.
Mike Park, he could work out as much as he wants to, but he eats like an idiot.
Then you got to work out.
But he'll just like, his favorite thing to do, no matter where you're at, is like go to like Costco or Safeway or whatever and buy like a bunch of snacks and just like watch TV and snack.
Just gorge.
Yeah, if I'm gonna throw him under the bus at all, I'll just give you that. He just loves to snack. It's like
he is a big Degrassi head too. Like he hosts.
Huge.
Well, he had a song, "I'm in Love with a Girl Named Spike," which then became the name for the podcast where they watch all the episodes. And then I see, Chris Candy's a guest. I get, maybe Chris Candy's really into Degrassi too. Then I listened to that and I was like, okay, he couldn't even name 3 characters. So you still made it enjoyable nonetheless.
Well, the funny thing with that was, he kept on, and
you kept alluding to your notes, which I think were non-existent.
They were non-existent. Yeah. But I remember watching the episode, but that was like peak. I remember that was peak pandemic. And I remember I didn't watch it.
So you had no excuse.
I had no excuse.
You had the time to rewatch it. Even funnier.
I've watched very few episodes of Degrassi. It's Degrassi or Degrassi?
No, it's Degrassi.
Degrassi, yeah.
And there was a bunch of series. I mean, I think the most recent one ended a couple of years ago, and I wasn't even watching at that point anymore. But it was perfect for me because I started watching the reruns of Next Generation, or not, Degrassi Junior High and Degrassi High. They came out like late 80s, early 90s. And then in the late 90s, CBC started airing them when I was in middle school.
Right.
And the topics and subject matter, although a little dated, were very much topics I wanted to know about at 12 or 13 years old.
Yeah.
And then a few years after that, they launched like the Next Generation. So it was kind of the perfect storm for me to get into Degrassi.
I remember the one episode I watched, I was like, damn, these episodes get heavy.
Yeah. And they kept true to that. Even with the Next Generation, they would update their content to be whatever's affecting teens now.
Right. They're cool. And, it's like a perfect Mike Park TV show because they're like a little corny, they're funny, they're oddly very serious really quickly. And
it's unintentionally corny, I think, just because of the budget they had and
totally.
certain things like that. And then, of course, there was the School's Out movie, which came out to end the series, the original series.
Yeah.
I think it was 93 or something like that. And that was the first time that the word fuck was ever on CBC. And it was like 9 p.m. or something, too. It was kind of a big deal at the time. So that's a little fun fact.
Well, yeah, but Mike loves that stuff. He loves like 70s stuff. What is that show? Brady Bunch and Love Boat, all that stuff. He's a
Gilligan's
sucker.
Island.
Yeah, sucker for all that stuff.
Well, and he helped put out some of your albums, right? So I did want to mention that you had a band, which you've recently informed me is sort of...
Well, I had a band forever called Chotto, Ghetto, and we're all still friends.
Formed in 2005?
Yeah. We were in college when we started that. And it's still a band, for sure. It's just not as active. Everyone's kind of doing other stuff right now. And it's... there's a phrase, this band could be your life. Mike Watt, this musician, said it.
From the Minutemen.
Yeah. This band could be your life. And he actually played on 2 Chotto Ghetto.
Yeah, I noticed that. I had that in my notes here. Yeah.
And it just can be, it can. And we were, Chotto Ghetto was started as like a pretty hardcore progressive punk rock band. And we started with 2 friends from college, my friend Fletcher and my friend Chris Shalakis, and we went to Loyola Marymount and started the band. And then it just kind of kept growing. We got this really amazing drummer, a guy from Long Beach. You're telling me all about Long Beach. Fletcher's from Long Beach. This guy Jody Giacello, and then we would add a second guitar player in every once in a while. But we were very much like Bad Brains, Deftones.
It was very experimental sounding from what I heard.
Yeah. Glassjaw, like we were really into Glassjaw. And that was a band I remember listening to on the Warped Tour. I met those guys on the Warped Tour. and the music is really aggressive. I think it like was kind of unnerving or venting a lot of anger I probably had, and I just and I loved being a really aggressive frontman with it. You know, I just loved the energy of performing and getting into it, and that's like the beauty of punk rock music. And
Yeah, you've got a solid scream on you.
yeah. But there's something really therapeutic about that, and we did it for a really, really long time. We put out a lot of records, and Mike was like nice enough, and he really did it because we're friends. You know, Chotto Ghetto was never a big band. Like, we could play LA, and like a handful of people would go to shows, and we would play this thing called the Fest down in Florida, and I was always just so happy because people would come and see us from all over the country or the world, and that meant a lot. But we were never a big active touring band. We maybe did 3 or 4 tours that were like US tours, and that were all self-funded, and
Cool.
And we would just kind of pay along our way. And then when all of us were getting into our careers, we just kind of paused it, and we put a record out called Wildfire towards the very end, and that's where it's at now. And
Well, that was 2019 too, and that would have been right before the pandemic, which doesn't help anything.
Exactly. There's another follow-up version to that record that when the time is right, we'll be able to finish. But it's just been, when you do a band like Chotto Ghetto, it's a really technical band, and a lot of time and thought goes into making that stuff. And so,
Well, the tracks on Wildfire had all this cool sort of like dramatizations of military stuff going on in the background on a lot of tracks, which I thought was interesting.
That's the bass player Fletcher really like he has a big comic book mind too, loves comic books, and his influence really got into the band, where it was like telling stories and storytelling, and he loves that stuff. And so and we even have a record called Monstrosity, and there may or may not be a long song on Monstrosity that may or may not sync up perfectly to Walt Disney's Pinocchio.
Oh, okay. A little secret revealed.
Just say there's like an 89-minute long song that we wrote that syncs up perfectly.
89 minutes? Wow.
Yeah. It's all like original music, and it's basically a rescore to Pinocchio we did.
Very cool.
Yeah. But
I loved the track Nightingale.
Oh yeah, that song's great.
It had like kind of a reggae vibe, which sucked me in for sure.
Yeah, that song's really fun. That was on. Yeah, that's a good one.
Can I ask what the band name, where that came from?
Yeah, Chotto Ghetto is Japanese for, well, Chotto's Japanese for a little bit, and that photographer friend of mine, Hiro Tanaka, we would go on tour with Mike Park, and it was kind of code if you were gonna, like, we would stay at people's houses, and so it was kind of like a joking code, like if the place we were about to sleep at, it was really dirty, and so we would go like, oh, Chotto Ghetto, and then
little bit,
a little ghetto, huh? You know.
Okay.
It's always just kind of, and that's really what it was, and I was like, Chotto Ghetto would be a sick name for a hardcore band. That's where it was.
The rest is history.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you were telling me you have a new project in the works, or a new band that you're a part of?
Yeah, I started a group with my friend Bob and my friend Neil. Neil plays in this band, the Lawrence Arms, and Bob plays in this band, Shinobu. And we just wanted to start like a musically easier, just kind of band that we could play whenever anyone's schedules permitted. So it's called Bull Shannon. And Bull Shannon we have an EP out called Chill Power. I sing and play bass in that. It's a 2-bass band and drums.
2 bass?
Yeah,
Oh.
2 bass.
Interesting.
So the one Bob plays like maybe more of like a leadier type bass line, and I'll play more a traditional kind of guitar bass part, or a guitar part on bass. And it's cool. I've never played bass and sang at the same time. It's really tough.
That always seemed hard. Yeah, I was just going to say.
But I'm figuring it out.
Kudos to Paul McCartney and the
I
other
know,
greats.
dude. Fuck. And yeah, it's a band that's like whole thing is like 3 people. Can we do it? Can we not do it? All good if we can't. It's like no stress express in regards to being a band. So we have a show in LA in San Pedro on Monday of next week, I think the 3rd. And yeah, that band is just for fun. And really, I guess that kind of also is to say, like, music in general for me is just for fun. Like, I love doing it. That's why
Therapeutic.
It's like, yeah, like when there's time to do like a Chotto Ghetto thing, that can happen, but it's just not right now. There's just too much other stuff going on, and Bull Shannon is just easy to fly in, fly out.
Another interesting name.
Oh, thanks.
Bull Shannon. Where's that one?
Bull Shannon is the the bald-headed man from Night Court, and Richard Mole, I think that actor's name is.
Oh, so that was the character's name.
Yeah, the character, and
they just rebooted a new version of Night Court as well.
And Bull Shannon is not in it.
Oh no!
We went to a bar after practice one night, and we didn't have a band name, and we'd been jamming for like a year, and I was like, okay, we have like as long we cannot leave this bar until we come up with a band name, and we have 2 hours. And so somehow Bull Shannon came up, and that's what it became. So yeah.
Well, it kind of sounds like you're about to say bullshit too, which is a little bit
it's kind of does Bull Shannon.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that band's super fun. And but yeah, Mike put out a record called Sparkles for Chotto, Ghetto, and a record called Monstrosity. And I'm not asking him to put out any of the Bull Shannon stuff because it's just, my friend Bob has a label called Fat and Funky, and we just distribute it through that. And we did a tape. We made a cassette tape.
Old school.
Yeah, super cool.
Maybe an 8-track next time.
I know. We're just going to go farther down the road.
Well, on the drive over here, you brought up Bumper to Bumper, which is something I definitely wanted to talk to you about. It's a podcast that you've done for quite some time now.
Yeah.
But it's not really in the car anymore, is it, from what I've been seeing?
No, not at all.
Kind of ditched that premise.
Yeah, seriously.
Because it used to be you guys would record this in traffic.
Yeah. So the initial podcast idea was like, my friend Rick, who used to do actually early Chotto Ghetto music videos, we started doing improv together and a ton of comedy together. And he's this really talented director. And we would
Rick, last name, just...
Rick Darge.
I figure if we're saying how talented he is, we should get his whole name
Rick Darge, you fucking idiot. No, I love you, Rick. Rick and I are naturally combative, and it's funny. Like we just know how to like just push each other around. And
in a loving way.
Yeah, but we noticed it so I'll back it up. We started an improv team called the Beach Bunnies, and we did improv at in the indie DIY LA improv scene. And there was this club called the Clubhouse, and then there was this show called this is crazy, I can't remember. It was the Clubhouse, and there was this guy Bart who did this show there every Saturday night, and I'm blanking on the name right now, it'll come to me, but he would give you the Saturday night, the amount of people on your improv team and the amount of people you brought would get you a minute of stage time. So The Local, that was the name of the show, The Local.
Price.
So, but it didn't matter because he would just invite everybody to perform, and there would be like, I think it was a 2-hour show, and start at 10, end at midnight, and there would be like 30 teams. It was like a lot, and you would get on stage, and there was no time to do improv. There was just zero time to do it. And so it would always turn into like this speed improv fest. Like you'd go up there and like just try and make people laugh as fast as possible. And everyone's a little drunk, it's late at night, and it would turn into like our team just like basically like verbally fighting each other, like doing all the things you're not supposed to do in improv. We would do it in those moments, and it would make people laugh. And that was being like kind of fighty with each other, I would be like a sandwich shop owner. Beautiful day for making sandwiches. And then Rick would like look at me, he goes, you talk too fucking much, and then it would, but we knew like in traditional improv, you can't go far on that kind of.
You're supposed to yes and everything.
Yeah, you can't be that negative in a scene. And at the Local, we were able to get people laughing because it was just so quick. And then that turned into more of our sense of humor as we kept on making stuff. And then it oozed into the podcast because Bumper to Bumper was traditionally, I would call Rick on these long, like just mind-numbing psychedelic traffic drives in LA, and we talk on the phone, and I'm like, this should be the podcast. This should be a fucking podcast. And it literally turned into that. He would drive one place, I would drive another place. Then the logistics and the pandemic happened, and then we didn't want to be spending gas and all these things. And so it just turned into a regular podcast, but it's kind of like goofy. It leans into like Howard Stern territory. Sometimes we do prank calls, or we do like, he uses the soundboard for things. He's always trying to get under my skin. I'm always, it's just a funny thing. And our friend Aldous now is on the show, and he's a stand-up from Los Angeles. And so, yeah, it's what it's turned into. And I like love doing it. I sometimes hate doing it.
Well, I feel like the name still works too, even if you're not in a car. Bumper to Bumper, if you're being sort of
bumpy compete with each other.
Yeah, antagonistic towards each other a little bit.
I'll put it this way: he's always antagonistic to me.
You just tolerate it.
Yeah, I tolerate it.
Okay. Well, people should go check that out. There's tons of them on YouTube.
Yeah,
episodes. You were in the 70s or something, I think I saw.
God, I think. Well, I have no idea.
It's been a while since you guys put up a new one, though, right?
We just put one up on Tuesday.
Well, I'm completely wrong there.
And that one we did a walk and talk. It was on. We walked around the Los Feliz neighborhood in Los Angeles, and it's funny because everyone was like taking photos of us because we look like the most like LA guys ever walking around with a podcast. Rick.
Yeah, well, that'll draw some attention.
Yeah, it did.
Cool. I did not want to forget to bring up, and I know my dad had a question about this too, the short film you did called Love Language.
Oh.
I don't know if you ended up watching it, but I thought it was hilarious. I first saw it when I was researching your sister.
Yeah.
And I saw it again. I just thought it was so funny, and I really hope people will go check it out.
Thank you.
I don't want to spoil it, or should I spoil it? I guess it's very short, but it's basically you hiding your farts from your beloved, this woman that you're dating in the most creative ways possible. Did you check it out?
Yeah, I watched it and I thought it was quite humorous. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, especially when you're like, oh, are you done with that? You take her cup, and that's funny enough that you're going to leave the car. But the fact that when you get to the curb, you just chuck them on the ground.
Yeah, we did a tisk at that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Pollution. Yeah.
Yeah. That again, that like goes back into the Rick Darge world. He's a really good filmmaker. He's got a great camera. It was shot beautifully. Yeah, we've made several short films together, and it's cool. Like, write a good idea, make it. We know how to make it kind of quickly. And it's just all got to be on the page for an idea. And yeah, that was just like an idea. I remember my girlfriend and I started, who I'm still with now, we were starting to date, and I was
Who does not like the Canadian weather, I've been told.
She loves Canada.
Side note.
Oh, the cold is, yeah. Well, she's
I don't want to derail your thoughts. Sorry, I just threw that in.
No. She, she's feeling it. I'll put it that way. But I remember like I hadn't had like a serious girlfriend for some time, and I'm like, what is it like about the whole dating thing is kind of crazy, because like you take someone out, you normally go get food, maybe food you don't normally eat, maybe a couple drinks, your stomach, your gut is just like a time bomb.
Oh, the nerves too.
And then and you're supposed to be kind of like intimate or flexing around this person, and it's just like, this is the worst time for all of this intestinal issues you're gonna have. So I would in real life find ways to like, hey,
go vent,
go take a fart,
Yeah.
Hey, go take a fart, you know what I mean? When she couldn't hear it, and I did 100% do the coffee thing.
And coming back from the tree, you do like the little wave.
Yeah, that's all Rick. I mean, that's just like to verbalize it. And then, I wrote it one way, and then you guys can watch it. And
the only thing I would have changed is at the very end, or added rather, is when you come out and notice her farting in the hallway, right? When you sort of turn back to go and tell her that you love her or whatever. And she gives you this really heartfelt look. If she would have kept that same look, but then had a moment of like smelling her own fart and then just gone back to lovey eyes, that would have killed me.
That would have like brought it into the reality of what the hell is actually going on.
Just like a 2-second look of like,
It's funny. And I will put it this way too. I hate toilet humor and fart jokes. Like, I hate them, and that was the intention of doing that sketch. Back to Goggins, even when we're talking about doing things you don't want to do, like figuring out a thing that I don't like to do and figuring out a way to do it,
make it work.
And the amount of time that Rick and I spent listening to farts, going, this is a good one
to get the sound bites.
Yes. Yeah, it was like it was like I had so many opinions about it. I'll put it that way.
Well, they can't be too sloppy, because that would imply that you wouldn't be able to go back to the date.
Exactly. They had to be a very specific kind of like thing, and so
dry and squeaky.
Yeah, and it was the most like dialed in I've been on a sketch for comedy. Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah,
and I loved that you guys. I saw some sort of promotional thing where the quote was like you guys getting rejected from some film.
Well, that was the thing. Like, we were getting like, I can't remember how that worked. We submitted it. There's a couple local film festivals in LA online. Short of the Week is one of them, and we were just getting like no love. And then we had a lead over at Vimeo, and Vimeo made it a staff pick, and that was helpful. But and so then we were just like laughing, like, this is, no one likes that.
I just like that you embrace that sort of like,
yeah.
You know.
I love that kind of humor. I love like the self-deprecating humor, where
Yeah.
you're making fun of yourself. That stuff's like hysterical to me.
Kicking yourself while you're down. Yeah. My dad, I know you said something to me on the phone about short films, and you had a...
Yeah, it was for me, it was just a little broader question. You know, when you watch the Oscars and stuff, you see short film categories and all this kind of stuff. And whenever you get to see one of these things, repertory cinema or wherever it might be, now online, but in the old days, online wasn't so easy. They were still making short films. And my question was, when people make short films, how do they get their money? Because obviously it takes money. There's still cast, crew, cameras. There might be location shots, all this kind of stuff that burns the cash. But there's no place for people to go see these things and pay money to see them.
Yeah. Well, there isn't. That's the answer to the question. They cost money, but there's kind of a bunch of approaches. And if you're going at it from like Love Language was made on the cheap because Rick had a camera. We had a friend who wanted to do sound. You know, there's a ton of people in LA or Toronto or major cities where there's a film industry of people who have skill that want to keep sharpening their kind of their talent. And it was based off favors. You know, we bought people lunch and carted them around, but Love Language was made with myself, Garen, the actress, Rick directing and shooting, and then a sound guy. And then we hired someone to do a score, but they make zero money. You know, you get all of, you know, and you have to look at it as a business card or like an investment in your career.
If it goes well, it's exposure.
100%. You know,
but what about one like Chozilla, which was, you know,
now Chowchilla, yeah.
Oh, Chowchilla, sorry.
Yeah.
It was very meaty. Like it had a lot of roles and it had a lot of stuff going on, and that's gotta
Just
cost.
a labor of love.
No, Chowchilla was more. There was more of an intention. Like Love Language had the biggest splash, and but we filmed it in a day. Chowchilla was, to those who are listening, like a short film I made. Same actress, Garen. Rick was directing it. But no, we pooled money together for that, and yes, it made no money back. And again, the point to it is it gets you out there.
Yeah.
And it gets you into festivals. It is something in a town where you, especially in an industry like Hollywood, where you need to like kind of show people what you can do. It was able to do that. And so it garnered attention for us. Does it lead, exactly. Does it lead to anything? I can't say, but.
Well, even the experience of making it is worth something.
But you have to learn somewhere. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I know I invested money in that. Garen did. My mom invested a little bit of money in that. But we still made it on a shoestring budget. I think it was, I think that one was like $12,000, which is a lot of money. But that is a movie where we put the crew up in a hotel room. We did the union route on that, and we do the union route on everything. But you know, we paid people. There's a way you can. What I mean by that, you can defer payment, and we didn't do that on this. We paid the actors, and we had a budget for it, but we made it look like it. It looks to me like it's a $60,000 movie or something, and but it's all just, again, skill. Cinematographer who needed to get some credit. We had a colorist who colored it for free.
You can put it on your demo reel and stuff like that for sure.
And that for us just started this process of oh, this is what we're capable of doing. And so out of that, we got to go to a bunch of film festivals. We did Rain Dance in London. It played Calgary International Film Festival. It played a slew of festivals in Los Angeles. But when we went to Rain Dance, we ended up, we paid for ourselves to go over there, but we made another short film while we were over there. And that one's called To the Stones. And so that was another really fun one that I love to do. But we just stole shots. Like we just rolled around and made it. And so, I always say for anything, like you don't need to spend $12,000 on a short film. But you can make something for the cheap and get it out there in the world. And I think it is such an important thing as a creative to do stuff like that, be it a podcast or I'm a big advocate for creativity. So, and
it shows. I mean, look at all the different things we've talked about already. It's all over the place, you know?
Yeah.
I love those types of people though, that you're not strictly in one lane.
Yeah. And and that also speaks to like, I always thought when I was, going to be I didn't want to be an actor. I wanted to really be my own person. And since my father was such a big actor and his star and his fame is still around, even though he's been, not with us for over 29 years now.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I was really like, oh, well, I'm going to just, not do any, acting stuff, but I'm going to be a musician. That's me. Path. I'm a musician. And even though I was doing like a play every year, I couldn't see it. I couldn't see how it's, all collective and you can do all these things collectively. And so anyways, yeah,
I've thought about that with you and your sister, that must have been an interesting dynamic, that sort of quote unquote pressure to follow in your father's footsteps,
Sure.
Whether it be from an internal thing that you're feeling or externally from other people in your life.
Yeah, it's real. And it comes from yourself and it comes from external factors. There's a part of you that wants to keep them alive. And so you think you're doing, but the real reason you have to get to for any of it is your own path. You have to do your own thing.
Yep.
People will see through it if it's another way.
Yeah.
And it makes me appreciate and love my father even more because what he did was beautiful. It was like so good. But if I were like shadowing that, then that wouldn't make sense. But it is for sure. But you just have to kind of stick to what you like. And that's when I realized with acting, like I caught back from a Chotto Ghetto tour and I realized like, well, we're not probably going to be touring much more. Like, and it wasn't because we were ending. This was when I was like 27. And I had a friend who said that his management company would want to work with me. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll give it a shot, And then when I got into that scene, I took an acting class and I realized how much I had to learn. And I was like, oh, you can't take this thing lightly. I had this like naivete, like it was going to be easy or something. Like I was like,
it would just come naturally.
I'd heard from people like, oh yeah, people are, would love it if you got into acting and, this person said this and
well, it's happened in Hollywood before where someone follows in the footsteps of one of their parents and.
Yeah. But there was this like fog of naiveness that was like, oh, it's going to just, yeah, okay, I'll start booking commercials, cause I was in, Bye Bye Birdie, and I made everybody laugh in 8th grade. I fell victim to everything that you do when you're green and don't know anything. And so then when I realized how much I had to work, then that even goes back to challenges, what we were talking about in the beginning. I'm like, this is a huge fucking challenge and I got to figure this one out. And I'm still figuring it out. But I think, with my father's world always being there, it was like, you're never going to escape it. You have to embrace it. Yeah. And it's not going to go anywhere. So
yeah, it's always going to be looming for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
But it can be a positive thing depending on
you have to turn it into a positive.
Yeah.
Then it's not negative at all, but it's its own thing. And, the more you carve out your own kind of thing and learn and educate yourself and grow and be curious about newness, then the better you're off.
Well, I mean, of course, I do want to ask you some questions about your father.
Sure.
That's the whole second side of my notes. But before we move on to that, I did want to bring up the fact that you host a show called Neüz Pollution. Is that still ongoing, or is this something?
Yeah, it's called. It's pronounced Neüz Pollution, but
okay.
Yeah, it's the umlauts that.
Okay, my
Stussy,
bad.
Noise, yeah.
On KXLU.
Yeah,
88.9 FM, Los Angeles.
Yeah, was KXLU is like a very old school college radio station. I went to Loyola Marymount.
I grew up on Loyola Avenue. Weird.
That's funny. See, There it is.
Well, we were talking before the podcast about how
Yeah, of course.
this is
94th.
the 94th episode.
My
We're
father
recording
passed
in
away in
March.
1994. Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah.
Anyways, go ahead. Sorry.
No. Loyola was where I went to school, and then KXLU was the radio station. And just I got to be a DJ up there, and I kept doing it because I was just like, and I still do it to this day because I love radio, and I can't believe I have an hour of LA radio time once a week, and I can't.
That's huge.
I can't give that up yet. I've maybe shown like I want to sometimes, but I just think it's such a cool thing, and I just started going back into the station back in LA.
And I'm sure you put on a good show because you've got diverse musical interests.
Yeah, well, it again, and it's that show's changed a bunch too. I used to do it with my old friend from high school, and we would do kind of like an improv kind of talk radio kind of show thing. And that garnered us a lot of attention in the art community and the local LA scene because it was just so bonkers. It was such a wild show. And that was, and my friend Carlos is one of my favorite people to improv with. But we would create like characters before each show. And so it would be like Neüz Pollution Radio, but this week's show is going to be called, the Malibu Juice Shack Boys. And, we'd kind of be like talking like this and, hey everybody, how's it going? My name's Tardino and we're here broadcasting live from Malibu Juices. Yeah, it's really good. And we would just like rip for a whole hour. It was insane. And then we'd play some punk or some garage rock or whatever. And then, that was the show. Now I've kind of just DJ. And during the pandemic, I would do these things called like cantina sessions where it was in my old studio apartment before I moved in with my girlfriend. And on Wednesday night, I would just like set up like a live stream and I would like DJ for like an hour and it would go up on the FM station and people would tune in on the live stream. It was super fun.
That's rad.
Yeah.
Speaking of radio, actually, I had a thing happen to me. I was at Walmart the other day, and this has happened to me many times in my life. This guy, I do not remember his last name. His name is Bob. I've learned since. He comes up to me out of nowhere, and he says, hey. And I was, first, it's Walmart, so I'm wondering what this guy's about to do. And then he goes, he had heard me speaking to Kelly, and he said, I just got to say, you have a great voice for radio and broadcasting. And I get that a lot, actually. And then he proceeds to tell me that he said, oh, did you ever watch Showcase? Or I can't remember what the other network was. I'm the guy that says, and then he immediately switched into the following program. And it was so uncanny. He messaged me later, really nice guy. But yeah, I've never actually done radio. I guess this is sort of like radio.
It's exactly it. It's exactly it.
New age radio.
Except it wouldn't be popped into a computer over podcast channels. It's going on FM or AM.
Yeah, I mean, and we don't do a lot of editing, but I think the live angle would kind of intimidate me, at least at first.
Well, it's interesting, too, because like I remember actually back with Mike Park, I went into Dickie Barrett's morning radio show when I was like, and Dickie was the singer of the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones.
Oh, very cool.
And I remember it's not really live for a lot of big radio stations. They kind of pre-record things and then they send it out live. Oh. It's very rare that it's like this exact thing. Like it's kind of, there's a delay or a tape delay or that it's like very built and then sent out. It's interesting.
I did not know that.
I didn't either until I went to that.
Especially when they say, we're live from
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless it's like maybe a convo or something. Anyways, yeah.
Huh. Yeah, because I've thought about, what if I did a live episode on YouTube?
You should.
I probably will eventually, yeah. I like to ultimately have that ability to sort of assess the footage after. And like I said, I rarely cut anything out. Usually if I do, it's something where I'm self-conscious about saying something stupid or, getting a fact wrong or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, let's flip the page.
Yeah, please.
Because, I mean, your dad is such an influential and amazing performer for the ages. And there's definitely stuff I wanted to talk to you about. But first, I have a gift for you.
Oh, great.
And I don't know if this is something you're aware of or you may already have. But as you can see, I'm a big board gamer.
Oh my God, okay.
And they have a Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, the game.
What?
Yeah. So there's yours, and I got one for me. I'm hoping you'll sign for me.
Oh my God.
So go out and get it. I think it's a co-op game, and it comes with a shower curtain ring. So if you don't have it.
It's a journey of hijinks.
Oh, which you want it in the middle camera? Or
it's a journey of hijinks and hilarity in this two-player cooperative game based on
I'll just
classic
go like this.
holiday film, overcome grounded planes, icy roads, and burning cars to reach. This is going to be the new Thanksgiving game to play. Funko makes this. Huh.
Yeah, pretty cool, right?
That's
I'm glad you've never heard of it and that you don't already have it.
Heard of
that
it.
makes me very happy.
That's so cool. Thank you. This is awesome.
Yeah, if you'll autograph mine after the pod, that would be super cool.
I would be happy to.
So I already asked you, did you know about this? No. Okay, my next thing I have to bring up is Ryan Renolds because him and Colin Hanks have announced that they are working on a documentary about your father.
Yeah.
So I just want to know, are you involved in this? If there's any details you could share, and if you know of a tentative release date. I was thinking maybe they were timing this with the 30th anniversary of your father's passing next March. Or
I can't speak too much on the project now, but I can speak on how lovely Ryan is, and I can definitely say that his appreciation for my father is just is beautiful. Like he in Deadpool, I think he always has.
He has the Canadian
mounted book. Yeah, he's just such a nice guy, and I know that he's a big fan. And he's just been lovely. And the people we've worked with over at Maximum Effort are really sweet. And yeah, Colin's a great guy. Really excited.
Well, Ryan really does seem to exude the same kind of Canadian warmth that your father is known for, really kind spirit and
he
an essence of humanity that you don't see in a lot of Hollywood is the way I would put it, I guess.
Absolutely. I think that and I learned that through him. I had seen his work and I remembered him from all of his films, like the Van Wilder movies.
Yeah.
And, I always kind of saw him around growing up and seeing movies, and he was always very funny. And then when, it's interesting, actually, the bass player of Chotto Ghetto was really excited about Deadpool, and he was talking about how they released Deadpool. And that was my first kind of experience of getting to know Ryan Renolds nowadays. And when I started to learn how much of a fan he was of my father's, I was just like, oh, that's beautiful. And then it's been within the last 5 years that he loves Canada. I can tell, And what's interesting? I've only met Ryan on Zoom. We've never met in person. But I've met people from his company in person, and he's a very busy guy.
I can imagine, yeah.
But he just does have that warmth for sure. I can tell, and he does love Canada, and even the stuff he did with like the Terry Fox shirt he just put out recently, or he was promoting. And even what it is this. I can tell that he and his company and the work that they put out, there is a lot of really genuine characteristics behind all of them. There's warmth, heart. There's a point of view, and he's definitely very much has that. So yeah.
Well, he has a lot of people in Ottawa excited right now because
I know
talk that he may buy the Sens, which is again something that makes me think of your father with co-owning the Argonauts.
Sure.
And I wonder if that's maybe some of the motivation that led Ryan to want to own sports teams. Of course, he's got Wrexham with Rob. I cannot ever say his last name right. McElhenney. McElhenney. I think that's what it is. Yeah.
I don't really know, but I do think of that too. I think that there is some connection.
Because it's a Canadian team this time around, it seems even more on point.
Yeah, exactly. It's.
He's got that Mint Mobile money, the 1.3 billion. If he wants it, he'll get it.
He's a guy who gets business. He's just. It seems like he's a person who's got like a good head on his shoulders, and even like with them announcing for Deadpool 3, I was just so impressed that they got. Everyone wanted to see
Hugh Jackman come back. Yeah.
Come on. It's like they kind of know what everybody wants. And that's so cool for creativity these days.
I think it was a mixed bag, though, because a lot of people loved the way that Logan kind of ended his tenure as Wolverine. It was such a great film.
But he even knew to point that out in like a video. He's like, we're not going to mess with Logan.
Yeah. It's going to be set before that. Continuity will be fine.
They just as a company understand, I think, the audience really well, and I think that's most really definitely cool. And Colin went to Loyola Marymount, and Colin, like I said, he's a director of documentary with his company name, but
great actor too.
Great actor.
Life in Pieces, we binged that whole series.
Yeah, and he does have a good heart, and I remember reading a play with him years ago when I was in a play at Loyola. He wanted, I think, to produce it or work with the director on producing it. So, and then Jen was in the same class as him at Loyola because Jen went to Loyola Marymount too. So there's that project has got some really cool DNA to it.
Yeah, real connections going on there. That's awesome. Well, give me a single for this one. Yeah. Ryan Renolds, we'd love to have you here in Ottawa. We'd also love to have you here in this podcast studio, but that might be a bit of a long shot.
You never know.
I do have a Deadpool costume from a previous Halloween, so if he ever comes on this show, I will be wearing that bad boy. Anyways, moving on though, I wanted to talk to you about, I'm going to go to a little bit more of a somber question first, which is that obviously your father passed away when you were about 10 years old, I believe, somewhere pretty young.
I was 8 years old, actually.
Oh, okay, my bad. I'm still very young. And my daughter recently, she's 12, and she's had a couple friends in her classes who have lost their fathers. One I believe, was to a drug overdose, and the other was a heart attack or something along those lines. So I want to know, as someone that's been in that situation and has been faced with that tremendous, unimaginable loss, if there is any words of advice that you might give to someone who's of that young age that is also being faced with that horrible situation or a similar one, and if there's any things that helped you weather that storm that you think might be translatable to somebody else.
Sure.
I mean, of course, if you're comfortable sharing that information.
I think that the biggest thing that I'm older now, and a loss, I think, is a unifying thing. A lot of people go through it. It's not easy at any age for anybody. I think there's a lot of unknown and a lot of anger and a lot of fear that comes out when you're that young and you lose someone that close to you.
And in the public eye, nonetheless.
Yeah, that adds a different caveat to it. But that's like 20%. The rest of it is something that everyone has to go through. Yeah. And carry that with them. And I think what I would tell anybody who's that age or anyone going through any kind of loss is to never fight the emotions or feelings that come along with loss. Like, they'll just body slam you if you try and have a stiff upper lip to it. I think that to feel your emotions, have your feelings about it, mourn properly, however you want to, is the best move for that. And people do things so differently, and respect how people do things differently. You know, I didn't go to my father's grave for a long time after he passed away. I think I started going maybe 10 years ago, and I just couldn't go back to that place. And now I love going back. But that then is to my overarching point, is that time is such a healer. And if you're honest with yourself, and if you can get through to your feelings on it, the time you'll look back on it and you'll go, this is amazing how I feel, how I'm doing.
Total shift in perspective.
Yeah. And I think that, it's never easy and it's tough when you're that young, because you go a whole lifetime without them, and you'll have to deal with the fact that you'll never see them again. And that is the hardest part. But when you're honest with yourself about that and those feelings, and you are allowed to have those days where you're just so upset about that fact, but you don't let it, depress you. You just feel it, then you can get through it. And I think that is always what I like to share in my journey with loss, because the times I've had to, the times I've tried to overcome it, I always just get taken down by it. So it's always good to just feel those feelings. Let them wash over you. For me, it's normally the day that he passed away that I'm like, this is just going to be a weird day. Yeah. And it's just going to be weird. And then, or it's kind of weird being back in Toronto. I wonder what is that about, and just feeling those feelings and being kind of open to that. And I think for anyone going through it at that age, that's what I like to share, and that you're not alone, and a lot of people go through it, and it's always good to talk to people about it and be open, and or if you want to just be by yourself, that's okay too.
Just embrace whatever you're feeling on a deep level.
I think so, and to know that you'll look back one day and you'll be like, holy shit, it has been a lot of time. Yeah. I don't want to say it gets better, but I definitely know it is different.
Yeah. That's beautiful stuff. I mean, I know what you mean with time. Of course, I haven't lost my father, but I have lost some people, and it definitely does change things the longer that's gone on. And the older you get, I find, at least from my side of things, as I get older, I go, okay, well, this is going to happen to all of us. And there's some of that kind of dawns on you in a way that maybe doesn't when you're younger. When you're younger, you feel kind of infinite, like you're just going to be around forever.
Yeah, it's true. And it is, it's a very brutal awakening to realize that that's not the case.
I've even thought about my kids, the fact that like, even if they live to 95, they're still going to die one day. And I won't even be there to be there for them,
Yeah.
It's just a trip, really.
The design of it in life is that you get to an age where, the person passes, your family members or, when you can kind of handle it a little bit more.
Yeah.
But when you're a kid, you're like, I'm not used to this at all.
You shouldn't have to handle it. Let's be honest.
You shouldn't. Yeah, and that's what it is.
Just like a parent should never have to bury a child as well.
Exactly.
There's certain things that just feel wrong.
The design of it isn't the plan primarily most of the time, but that is life. Things happen. There's always something around the corner, and so you just. But I have to say that honesty about it with yourself and getting in touch with those feelings are more helpful than hurtful. And if you hide behind other things, it's like, you're not going to, because I did it all. I mean, for myself, I tried to kind of get through things without, I'll be fine today.
I really appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
I mean, I was going to say, I hope it helps someone that might find themselves in that position, but I don't think we have too many young viewers where we're saying fuck every, few words. But I know my dad had a question that sort of piggybacked on this one.
Yeah.
You had spoken to me about, which I found pretty interesting.
Well, yeah, when I was doing the reading, I wasn't aware that your father had lost his father at such a young age. And I think he was 5 when his dad passed.
Yeah.
And what I just was curious about was if there was any point in your life where your father talked to you about what it was like for him growing up without a father and how he coped. And then you didn't know it at the time, but later that might have helped you a little bit, but maybe that didn't happen. I was just curious.
Yeah, no, it didn't happen. I found that all out later. And that's my journey with my father is like, I'm like a private detective learning about him as time goes on. Oh, this is a new story I never knew, or this is new, or, oh, he lost his dad at, and then you look at it and you go, we all have this thing in common. What's that about? Everyone's lost like a father really early. What's going on there? And so that information then led me to be like, how am I going to live my life differently, or what is it? And one of the things that I'm most bummed about for, it was a heart attack. Well, we don't know. That's the thing, actually. For my father, it was definitely a heart attack, but we don't know with my grandfather what it was because it was so long ago. They're not quite sure usually what it was at that time. But you go, okay, I've got now this family history, and how am I going to take care of myself? How am I going to stop this tradition? And I genuinely, at the end of the day, think that it's for him it was cigarettes. I think for both of them they were smokers. I think that just leads to so much. For the right person, it's the completely wrong thing to do for cigarettes. Some people smoke till the day they die.
Thank God they're not as popular as they used to be. Even when I was a teenager, there was way more smokers.
Exactly. It's really kind of lost its cred. And so, yeah, but I never got that lesson from him. And it was really more me kind of having to go, okay, what's up here?
Well, in his defense, if when he passed you were only 8, it might have been kind of a heavy conversation to drop on a 7-year-old.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's part of it too. So he never did, but I do know that was that definitely weighed on him because he was a caretaker for everybody. It was like he stepped up to be the kind of man in the family and all these things, and so that was really.
Did he have a lot of siblings? Or?
He had a brother, my Uncle Jim, who passed away. He passed away in his 60s. And then my Aunt Fran, actually, who was my grandmother's sister, she just recently passed away maybe 5 years ago, but she was kind of the end of that immediate family. And then
I was actually asking if your father had siblings. I should have specified that.
Oh, no, yeah, my father did. Jim. Yeah, Jim Candy. Jim, but he was... in his 60s when he passed away, but It was not of heart issues. Yeah, he had cancer, I believe.
Oh, too bad.
But yeah, but he was intellectual, loved jazz, very kind of if my father was the extrovert, Jim was a bit more of an introvert.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, I have to interject at this point, and I really hate to do it, but our video feed has just stopped.
Oh, okay.
I think we have a memory issue.
Hey, sorry about that. We might have lost a few seconds of the conversation we were just having. Not the greatest timing, but these technical things happen. We're back into it.
Got too real.
Got too real, exactly. So I did want to shift to a little more of a positive note. I am part of a Long Live John Candy Facebook group.
Oh, okay.
It's got 171,000 fans on it.
Oh my God.
So I did a little shout out to them, and I told them I was going to be doing this interview, and I asked if anyone on there had any questions that they wanted me to ask you. So
yeah.
I've got a few of those, but first I wanted to start with more of just a comment from a guy named Mike Newman, which I thought really summed up your dad's work. He said, "How could you not be full of love and respect for John Candy? A caring and charismatic personality that oozed out into every movie character John ever played. A living and breathing teddy bear for so many youth back then. You'll never hear a negative story about him."
Yeah.
And on that, I wanted to comment that I saw actually a Facebook post. It was like celebrity interactions that people had, and they talked about going to the fair with their brother or something like that, and their dad. They ran into John Candy, of all people, and their dad left his kids with John Candy so he could go to the bathroom. And apparently your dad bought them a corn dog and was nothing but a gentleman. So this is a funny story I found online. But Sarah Novelli asks, there's a 50th anniversary for SCTV celebration that's already in the works. And she wanted to know if you were going to be involved in that in any way.
Yeah, they're doing an event up in Toronto in the summer, I believe. And yeah, we've been invited to come up for that. So they just did a new Second City theater, and they moved he has a theater there called the John Candy Box Theater, and it was in the Second City in Toronto, across from the Firehouse. Now they moved it to this new place down by the water, and yeah, there's a John Candy Box Theater. They've already started having shows and classes in there, and so we're gonna go up for that. So yeah,
perfect.
Yeah, it's great. I remember the last time Second City did I think it was their. Well, God, was it what one was it? It must have been the 40th, but it seems like it wasn't that. It seems like it was longer ago. Maybe the 35th. It's 50th anniversary of Second City.
Yeah, I think 73 to 2023.
That's amazing. God, I must have been
That's what she said, at least.
I know it is. I'm just. Yeah. That it seems like. I think it might have been the 30th. It must have been the 30th or the 40th. I can't remember, but we were in Chicago for it, and it was like mind blowing how many like amazing comedians were all there, and we were there to kind of be there. But it was like that institution has just pumped out so many funny people. It's amazing.
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully it'll be a good time up here in Canada for the 50th.
I'm excited. Yeah. Again, it's always nice coming up here again. So I was here right before the pandemic working on a movie of the week, and I remember like I was in the hotel and I just kept on seeing on the screen like, COVID here, COVID there. And I was like, it's not going to come over. Then I got home and literally a week later, it was like,
yeah, you couldn't get away from it.
No.
Like we were talking about earlier. Yeah. Well, speaking of coming back to Canada, I just noticed when we took that interrupted break there that it's really coming down the snow outside.
I've been looking out the window here and
the porthole.
I'm the porthole, yes, into the reality out of the comic book cave. Yeah.
Cool. Well, Adam Seuss asks if your dad ever acted like one of his characters at home, whether if it was just to have fun or if he was rehearsing, if you ever caught any of that.
Yeah. People always want to know that. It's true. He
like wearing the Spaceballs outfit at home or
something. You know what it is when you get around someone who's that much of a pro at what they do, they know when to turn it on and turn it off. But they also, what was consistent in all of my dad's work was like his heart, I think, and like in kind of what you're talking about. Like he didn't grow up in a big, rich family of actors. He doesn't have this kind of Hollywood dynasty to his name. There were, middle class, blue collar. His dad was a car salesman, and so he had the upbringings of kind of being genuine to people, and it just carried with him into Hollywood. So people see this big actor, and he was this very gregarious, lovely person to be
So
around.
relatable.
And yeah, he wasn't, I guess the word would be disingenuous. I think he was a very honest person. And he just, I have a friend in Los Angeles who, same kind of story, like who I've known for years. And he said, he had no idea my dad was John Candy. And he said, your dad's John Candy, kind of distant friend, but he said, oh yeah, my dad did voiceover work with your dad, Oh, really? He's like, yeah, I talked to your dad on the phone. I was
crazy.
like, really? He's like, yeah, my dad put your dad on the phone and he just knew how to talk to me. He asked me what my favorite ice cream was. And I was laughing because I'm like, yeah, he was a big kid at heart. So, he knew how to talk to kids. So.
Well, and to pull a line from Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, your dad seemed like the real article,
Yeah, definitely. I just think he was very much, I look at it in that capacity that like he was around regular people and honest people and he treated people the way he would want to be treated for sure.
Well, and speaking of voiceover work, you made me think of something because I, of course, in research for this, I was looking through his filmography and I've seen a lot of them growing up. Some I haven't seen, but one I totally forgot about was Heavy Metal.
I know.
And I remember watching that at a sleepover when I was probably too young to be seeing animated breasts.
Yeah, right.
He was like a barbarian character in that, if I remember correctly, but... Well, that was a pretty cool flick.
Yeah, that like speaks to that time of them of like being in the entertainment business in like the 70s and the 80s, and like you just took whatever work you could get, and it just happened to be like a cult classic.
Yeah, it's really cool. If no one's seen it, or if anyone hasn't seen it, I should say you should go check it out.
Yeah.
If you can find it anywhere. I couldn't find a place to stream it last night, but
yeah, they pop up every once in a while.
Amazon said currently unavailable. It was there, but
really,
I don't know why you would have it if it was unavailable, but and then I guess that's it for the fan questions. I only grabbed a few because I wasn't sure how long we would have with each other. But I did want to ask if you, in particular, had a film of your father's that really speaks to you the most, or one that you hold closest to your heart.
They pivot all the time. I think that I always kind of say, and it's true, like because I had so much love and reverence for John Hughes, and I like in Planes, Trains is just like a great film, and like. John was someone who really connected me back to my father after he'd passed away. I was talking about that kind of era of time where you kind of are trying to figure out who you are. And John really helped tell stories and explain to me who my dad was in this really great way. And so in knowing their friendship and his understanding of my father's gifts, when I watch movies like Planes, Trains or Uncle Buck, you can see that like dance of amazing storyteller and amazing actor really, really work well. And they just got comedy. And like some of those Planes, Trains, and Automobiles scenes with Steve Martin and my father are just like, they're like Laurel and Hardy. They're just so funny. The whole car sequence.
Just iconic, yeah.
Yeah, and the editor really just dialed in all the beats. And so it's just such a good movie.
Well, and apparently there's like an hour of extra footage that never made it into the film. Some of it's on the Blu-ray now, recently released, but there's some that it's lost to the ages from what I've heard.
I'd also argue, I think there's like, or not argue, get an argument about this. I know that there are different versions of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles and Uncle Buck in circulation now.
Oh, really?
Where if you were maybe watching it on TV, it might be a different edit than if you see.
Okay, yeah, I did hear that.
Yeah, there's just different ones that have different beats to it because I think there's so many different edits.
Well, I know there was an edit for Steve Martin's rant when he starts yelling at the.
Oh yeah.
I can't remember if she was a flight person at the airport or at the bus station.
The car
rental.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
Owner, yeah.
And he drops a couple F-bombs in that speech, or at least one.
Edie McClurg, is that her name? I think
she was in Ferris Bueller's Day Off too, right?
Amazing character actor.
Yeah, super great. Okay, well, the last, I won't keep you too much longer. The last question I have for you is the season 4 question we've been asking everyone, which is, what's the shittiest job you've ever had? Some people have many, but, pick the one that really stings.
Oh, man. Okay. This is a good one, actually. I will, okay, let's see here. This is a great question. I will. Okay, I'm going to do this without giving names. That's why I thought about it. I like I said, I worked at a lot of clothing stores, and one of my favorite jobs is I was a guitar tech for this guy Donovan Frankenreiter, and I got to travel Europe and America and North America, and it was so much fun. He's this professional surfer and really great guy. I learned a lot from him, and I lost my job at this skate shop in LA called Hot Rod. It's a very famous skate shop also in Los Angeles, and I worked there a little bit. And so I had this very like, I need to get a job mentality because I was no longer going to work for Donovan, so I didn't have that. And then I didn't have my job at Hot Rod anymore. And so I was kind of bummed that I got fired from Hot Rod because I knew the owner. And I was like, fucking this guy. So I had a buddy who worked for a grocery delivery service called Yummy. And I worked at Yummy for about a month. And the only reason I left was because I got offered a job at another clothing store in a part of Los Angeles. I'll just put it that way. And now most would think a delivery job, that would be the worst. And it really wasn't. It was kind of fun. It was just really, it was like mind numbing at times though, because it was like literally just like, get groceries and deliver them.
It's not too bad.
No, it was cool. But I went to go work at this other place, and it was in a part of West Los Angeles that's like a very fancy part of LA called the Palisades. And I worked for someone who was insane to work for. And I still know this person. And so, but I'll give a story.
Okay.
The store was a mess. It was just like the back stock area was so messy. And this store was just so poorly run. Like if you have any OCD at all, like you kind of mentioned, like your brain would just like ignite. And I remember I was there and I was just, they really depended on me because I was like, they took advantage of me being a nice guy, and I would do way more work than I needed to. And I ended up just kind of managing a bunch of people who worked there. But the worst thing I had to do there, I remember, was like, the back bathroom was just always just disgusting. And one day I was like, fuck it. I am going to clean this thing just out of the kindness of my fucking
top to
heart.
bottom.
Yeah, and I did it. And I just cleaned the entire bathroom. And then I think I left like 2 weeks later. But it was like very like, but the store was just chaotic. It was just, it was a skate shop in the Palisades. I'll just put it that way.
Okay.
The owner, she will still probably figure it out and call me somehow, but
she should have kept her bathroom clean.
yeah, I remember that was probably the worst, but
I don't think anyone wants to clean a bathroom.
I mean, people do it, but they're professionals at it. They're better than I could do it. I think that was easily my worst job. I was so stressed out working there. Police were called one time on employees and owners, and it was like hybrid. I was 25 at the time. It was like hybrid being a camp counselor and hybrid like managing like a big retail store in Los Angeles where like the owner was just like in and out of working there. There was all kinds of drama. I remember like, the owner would get like an opinion on another employee, and I'd be like, don't you go down that road in your mind, because you're going to fire this person in like a week, and then I'm going to be working like 12 days in a row because you're not going to have anyone to work here.
Yeah.
And I remember, this is a funny story actually, I had to train my replacement.
What?
And I was like, okay. And we were taking people off Craigslist, and this woman came in to be my replacement who didn't get the job. But
like you had put in your 2 weeks notice kind of thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
And she came in, and it was just like, she was like Eastern European. And I think like her resume had said that she'd worked at like an adult gift bookstore before this. And like, and she was just, I was like having this conversation with this woman about like skateboards, and she clearly had no idea what she was doing, but she just needed a job. And it was like the polite, like, listening to every beat of her career and then go like, you're in the completely wrong place
this
right
This
now.
is not the field for you.
So that was kind of funny.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Well, that's it, man.
Oh my God.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I hope we hit all the beats.
Yeah, I mean, we did all the notes and
I love it.
I enjoyed it. It sucks we had that little technical hiccup, but hopefully not much comes of that.
Just chilling.
Just chilling. Thank you so much again for coming. We always high five at the end.
Thanks, Oliver. This is awesome.
Yeah, man.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
I don't know if you're saying that to my dad or the audience.
I was saying it to your dad.
And the audience, if
and
you've
the
been
audience,
watching.
thank you all so much.